I, Aziz Draws, have recently returned from tabling as an artist at Anime Expo, and this illustration was my best-selling print. Anime Expo is a convention held in LA during July 4th weekend, and even though there were 970 plus artists along with me in the artist alley, I was still able to make a decent amount of money selling my artwork. To explain how I ended up making this drawing and selling it at AX, let's travel back in time to last year. In September of 2024, I tabled at a convention known as Madison Comic and Pop Culture Expo, or MADX for short. The reason I wanted to go to Madison was honestly just to hang out with some college friends that live in that area, and this event enabled me to do so. MADX had some cool guests though. I got to say hi to DX member X-Pac, actor Ross Marquand, and Time Force Red Ranger Jason Fawn. My table was just a few yards away from Jason's, so I took the opportunity to chat with him during some downtime. I shared with him some of my Power Rangers art, specifically the ones I did of the Disney 3-peat seasons, and he really liked how they all turned out. After looking at all my art, Jason would then ask me, "Have you ever done Time Force?" I thought about it and realized, while I was fully aware of the Time Force season, I had never really watched any of it, save for an episode or two. Jason informed me that it was the most emotionally mature season of PR, and so off the bat the expectations were high. He asked if I would be willing to work with him in making a Time Force print for his table, and I agreed to get to work on it once I finished my viewing homework. Once I got back from MADX, I decided to start watching Time Force with my friends on Discord, viewing between 4 to 8 episodes a day. Jason's opinions on his season rang true, for there was definitely a more serious tone with the story and the characters. I mean, off rip, there was a major character death in episode 1, kicking off the Rangers' adventure into the year 2001. I actually had a good time watching Time Force. The show had a captivating story, likable characters, a cool leading Pink Ranger in Jen, top 5 suit designs, and not one, but 2 Red Rangers. The season was honestly good enough that it kickstarted our rewatch of Power Rangers starting from Mighty Morphin. But as I revisited my Power Rangers journey, it was time for a Time Force drawing. As per usual, I sketched out various compositions for the drawing, and I let Jason choose the one he felt best suited what he was looking for. Afterwards, I would steadily work on the illustration, regularly sending updates and questions on what he wanted to add or change. After a few weeks of work and some minor touch-ups, we had a Time Force print ready to go. I think out of all the Ranger drawings I've done so far, this one had the most realistic rendering. I think the high contrast, dramatic lighting I chose for the composition helped create that sense of realism. I think at some point a user online even asked if my drawing was a render of 3D objects or a sculpture. So initially for our rewatch of Power Rangers, we were only going to just watch in space, as it's considered one of the best seasons for Power Rangers by many. We soon realized, however, that watching Power Rangers from the beginning would make the experience of watching in space more complete, for all the seasons are direct sequels to each other. Watching Mighty Morphin was the biggest challenge for our group, for that section of Power Rangers is 135 episodes, a 10-episode miniseries, and a movie? It's Morphin time! But alas, through sheer willpower and determination, we watched all of Mighty Morphin. Then we went through Zeo and Turbo fairly easily, for we had adapted to watching the much larger seasons prior, with a dramatic and unhappy ending to Power Rangers Turbo, which was pretty cool to watch honestly. We at last made our way to our destination, Power Rangers in space. In hindsight, despite how long it took, I was glad we started from the beginning of Power Rangers to get into in space. It's the same energy as skipping parts in JoJo. Yeah, you'll get the gist of the story, but there's a chance certain moments and character interactions won't have the same level of impact for you to compare to someone who watched it all the way. During the first episode, there's this villain banquet scene. You can see that Zordon's been captured by them, they're celebrating the Rangers' defeat, but if you look around you realize it's all the villains they faced in the previous seasons. I think that's pretty cool. I think out of all the seasons I've watched so far, In Space was the one that lived up to its hype. I have no nostalgic ties for this season. There's no rose-tinted lenses to view it from, but it's in my top 5 now. I enjoy the story of Andros and his family ties with the villains. I like that because of his backstory and personality, he sometimes struggles to be a leader for the team. TJ, even though he's the Blue Ranger in this season, would sometimes become the surrogate Red Ranger when Andros' feelings would cloud his judgment. But that works because TJ was a Red Ranger in Power Rangers Turbo. That very team dynamic actually influences my composition. That's why I have Andros in the foreground but off to the side, but TJ's in the back, centered in the composition. You might have noticed with this drawing as well, I took inspiration from the graphic design elements of older space propaganda posters. I figured that artistic choice would fit the theme of the season, and it's one of the rare times I chose to add a border or frame for my artwork, and I can say I'm happy with that decision. Another Easter egg is the numbers and text at the bottom. It's a reference to the morph sequence the Rangers have in the show. Also, that's plain dynamic. Now, by the time I was done with the in-space illustration, Anime Expo was just a mere week away. A part of me felt that I had to get this print done in time for the convention though, so I requested a rush order for it to at least make it on Friday, the second day of AX. Why did I wait last minute to get this drawing done, you may ask? Because I was working on another print for Anime Expo beforehand. So, throughout the years of tabling in artist alleys, I've been hearing more and more about what they call stamp rallies. Stamp rallies are essentially prize runs where if an attendee fulfills certain tasks, say, buying items at select artist stables, they can redeem an item as a reward. I decided for AX to join 2 stamp rallies, one based off a relatively new superhero-themed hero shooter, and one surrounding the idea of stand users enjoying their time in a beach episode. The prize for the beach episode stamp rally was a zine featuring different parts of the bizarre adventure drawn by various artists, one of them being me. I'm glad I joined the rally, because I hadn't made JoJo art in nearly 3 years. It's getting to the point where people don't even know I mess with this series heavy. Perhaps I should draw some more this year. For my illustration, the setting is in part 3, where the Stardust Crusaders embark on a journey to find and defeat the diabolical Dio. Only this time, Dio challenges them to a game at the shores of Egypt. To those of you that watched JoJo the right way and watched the first part, you may remember, when growing up, one of the sports Dio Brando used to play with Jonathan Joestar was rugby. All these years later, Dio wants to see if Jonathan's descendants and comrades are up for the challenge. I'm curious as to whether or not they use the stand abilities during their game. Nolvini, the artist leading the rally and designer of the zine, did an awesome job honestly, and it was cool being part of that collaboration. The prize for the other stamp rally I joined was also really cool. I'll put the names of the artists I joined with for the stamp rallies on the screen in case you want to check them out. Funnily enough, due to the 4th of July, I lost a business day for shipping, and my prints ended up locked away in the UPS facility for the entire weekend. You know, the weekend I needed the prints. Because my in-space was a rush order, however, they did arrive a day before. The prints that sold the most arrived just in time. Regarding the issues of my prints not arriving on time, there was a local company that did weekend printing for artists in AX, which is a genius business model. I gave it a shot, and I was able to print some of the stock that didn't arrive. The only downside was I had to end up destroying a lot of the stock afterwards. I did give away some for free though. AX managed to be my best show for this year so far. Despite the cost of getting to LA, my profit margin was still over 50%. I even made more than I did at DreamCon. However, AX did have one extra day of sales. This is my first time being an artist at AX, so I don't have any frame of reference for the previous years, but I still think I did okay considering there were 900 other tables of artists that could draw. I've been at conventions where there's not even half the number of artists, and it was still too many. I think AX is just a really big con though. I don't know the exact numbers, but if the attendees were over 100k, it definitely felt like it. Trying to walk around was my least favorite thing to do in that alley. Thinking back on the weekend, there were at least 3 reasons I can confidently say are what helped me at Anime Expo in terms of sales. Reason 1, table location. When I was accepted into Anime Expo, I was part of the second wave of accepted artists. Within the hour the email was sent to me, I read it, internally freaked out a little because I did not expect to get in. Then I selected my table. This was the first time I have ever been given a choice to select my table, much like a seat in the theater. With great power comes great responsibility, so I chose a spot that was as close as possible to the end of a row to get more eyes on my work. Little did I know the spot I chose was right by the entrance of the artist alley. This meant if attendees started on the right side of the floor, I was the first of many to get to leave an impression. Reason 2, niche. Attendees were happy to find that I had art of characters and genres that they typically wouldn't find in the artist alley. In my case, fans of PR were happy to see I had prints of some of their favorite seasons. A healthy portion of the attendees were my age group, so many enjoyed the same era of ranges as I did. There were a number of moments a customer would simply look at a print and go, "Yeah, how much?" There were even some drive-by business card swipes I appreciated. There's a lot of people in the artist alley, so it makes sense for people to be quick about their decision making. Reason 3, art style. Sometimes the niche of the fandom wasn't always the selling point, but instead the art style and the composition itself. Because of my choice to avoid drawing faces, illustrating different viewpoints and perspectives, I had presented ways to look at familiar fandoms and ideas that typically aren't shown. In an artist alley as competitive as Anime Expo, it's important to stand out not only in skill, but in the products you have available. Most of us were selling prints, so the contents of the prints had to be something new. Customers are also running out of wall space, so considering that, I'm definitely going to have to think of some other products to sell in the long run. But listen, AX I think is still dope. It definitely is more competitive with the number of artists in the alley now, but I think you can still do pretty well if you choose a good spot and you have something that people haven't seen yet. It was awesome getting a chance to meet a lot of the artists I have been following for years. I recognized some of the artists from YouTube, which was pretty cool. I got a chance to visit LA again. I also found out that Night City from 2077 shows up on the 4th of July. And shout out to my friend Sky, he was the one that was helping me out during the weekend. And thank you to everyone that stopped by my table. My next convention will be Anime NYC. So if you're in the area, I hope to see you there. Be sure to check out my website at zdraws.com. I have some art there you might be interested in. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon. And till next time.